Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the playground. I am so happy to have you here. And it's been a couple weeks. I took a week off and I'm just happy to be back. I've really been just following and just trusting myself, like following my intuition, because I will tell you the thought of like, you could just record an episode has crossed my mind a lot of times. But I remember when I started this podcast, I was like, this really is a part of like a passion of mine. And I don't want to force it. And I don't want it to fall into something where I feel like I have to do. And it's never felt that way. But I'll tell you, when I feel like I don't want to record an episode, those thoughts are definitely there. So, anyway, the last couple months, I've felt like you'll probably hear my dog in the background. I've felt like it's been more of like, you don't have much to say, even though I do. Like, I have a lot, I write a lot, I reflect a lot. Of course, I have a lot to say. But there's been that piece of me where it's just like, it's kind of brewing. And I feel very called to share like what I'm in the thick of, like what I'm going through. And when I'm really in the thick of it, it's like, I can't even like express it fully. And I have those thoughts of like, it's not quite ready, it's not fully developed for me to even express. And so yeah, that's kind of just what I've been honoring. And so today, obviously, I have something to share, but it's like, it's such a good feeling honoring myself, like when I don't want to speak or share. And then when I am ready, it is like my heart is like cracking open. So yeah, that's where we're at. And I think where I'm at right now is really this place of like grounding myself into these new identities and clearing up my life. Like, I feel like I'm in this huge, like almost decluttering, but just like system reset of my life, because I described this to Amy earlier, where like I was on such a high of life. Like, I saw everything so beautifully and it was all synchronistic, and it still is, like, that has not changed. But I saw everything from this lens for so long that when I kind of like came back down to earth, it was like a shock to me. And there was a lot of shedding that was necessary of like, okay, now that we're back here and we've had all these different perspectives like drop in, and there's these new truths that I am now living by, like, you got to clean up your life, because down here you're not aligned with what you are wanting to have, like what you just experienced. So anyway, it was kind of like, I know that's probably out there for some people, but it's really how it feels, of like just kind of coming into this new identity of like, oh wait, this stuff doesn't make sense. Like, and that's really what it's been like over the last 2 months or so, of just identifying like, oh, this is the thing that is not fitting. And when I move this, when I shift this, it's like kind of just wait and observe and see what shows up for you. And so it's been a lot of manifesting through the shedding and the grieving. And there was a lot that came up for me over the last couple months where like I didn't grieve the changes and the transitions in my life over the last 5 years, and probably more than that. But like honoring the periods of my life, the times in my life, the phases in my life, whatever they were, and really like having a ritual for stepping into this new identity, stepping into this new life. Like, I know personally, we adopted 2 kids last year, which is a huge initiation. It was very ceremonial, and you still had some like lingering energies that needed to be cleared out. And that's also in part where we're getting ready to adopt again. And so our family dynamic has really carried this energy of transformation and change. And we're at that point where we're like, okay, we're settling into this foundation of what we have. And there's this just like groundedness that needs to happen. And in order for that to happen, there was all this other energy moving around. So Anyway, needless to say, a lot of energy was moving. And the question that I have been getting lately is like, what have you been up to? Like, you were so quiet. And I'm not very quiet very often. Like, I tend to just kind of like say, this is what I'm doing. Like, hey, here's what I'm doing now. And it's always surprising to people. It's always like, it's like, what is Caitlin up to now? But when I'm quiet, it gets people kind of wondering. And I have been quiet. Like, I haven't posted on social media much. I haven't reached out as much to people. And people know this about me. Like, I'm a 2-4. Well, they might not know I'm a 2-4, but they know my energy of like, hey, if Caitlin hasn't reached out, or like if we just haven't talked in a while, I'm sure everything's fine. And they'll check in with me. And I'll say, yeah, good, just whatever. I'll have whatever response and just say, I haven't been, as available to check in and all that. But they just understand that. They know it. They know I'm moving through stuff. And my close friends also know, like, telepathy is real. I'll just say that. And like, we can communicate things without having to pick up our phone. And so there's been a lot of understanding, but there's also been a lot of curiosity of like, what have I been up to? And it's so funny because when people have actually asked me this, I'm just like, what have I been up to? Because I feel like it's just been a lot of following my intuition and just playing. And it's actually been a lot of deep, intimate, serious stuff that I've been dealing with, been working with. But it's been like trying on new clothes, right? Like, it's like, I'm just going to try this on and see how it feels. But I've been doing this with different energies, with different perspectives, with different beliefs, with different identities. I've shared this before, but I stepped into like my baking era, and I just like went all in. And I decided, so like about 15 days into this kind of unsettled feeling, where I knew, I was like, okay, I'm being called to like really ground in, and what in my life is not allowing me to ground into my truth. And so I kind of had this idea, and I just knew, I was like, I need to figure out what is true and what's not for me. And the only way I can do that is just like relentlessly trying on new things, changing things up. And like, I couldn't do it with an ounce of like doubt or question or fear. Like, I had to do it full on. And it started with this idea of like being a homemaker, and um not necessarily like not doing any other work or whatnot, but just like claiming that identity and claiming like, yeah, I do care for my kids, I do care for the house, I do make the food. And not that Amy doesn't do that, but like just claiming that that is one of my roles. And so instead of kind of taking the seriousness out of this, I was like, I'm going to claim to be a baker. Like, this is going to be fun for me. It's going to be, one, a creative place for me. Two, it's going to be a little bit challenging because I've always identified as like not a good baker. Burning cookies was my thing. And so, it was, for me, it was just kind of like this exciting challenge. And I went all in. I started with things that like Amy was like, why don't you just start with a cake? But no, I went all in. And so I've been baking and I really enjoy it. I'll never like pursue it or anything like that. Like, I don't want that. I don't want the pressure of like timelines or anything. I have been baking for my family and for friends, and it's been a delight. I bake at least one time a week, but it's usually like 3 times a week. So that's been fun. And what that's done for me is just allowed me to step into a different identity. I don't know that I'll bake forever, and maybe I'll do more baking in the future. I have no idea. There's no expectation with the things that I've been experimenting with. And that's the beauty of it. And that's where you really get one, clarity of like what's for you and what's not. And you get inspiration of like, okay, how do I see myself? How do I see myself spending my time? What do I see myself doing? Who am I around? What environments am I in? And like, if I went all in with baking and there was something that I didn't like about it, like, it would have showed up. It would have been there, you know? And trust me, like, it hasn't all been easy. Like, I've failed at baking a lot of things already. And I put one of the treats in the oven, and then Amy turned on the oven later and there was like saran wrap on it. So, there's been lots of fun times with it, but I've been baking, doing lots of crafts, lots of cleaning and organizing. And this is like all intentional for the energetics of like things need to be shifted in my life, things need to be moved, like so much needed to be cleared out. Like physically, there was just so much, like I didn't realize how much stuff, what I do, like I know how much stuff we have, but there was just this point where I'm like, why do we have all of this? And and I don't know why, but that's been a fun kind of decluttering process and just organizing. Like there's a piece of me that like always said I don't have the energy or the time to organize, which is not true. And like I said that's not my truth anymore, because when things are organized and like looks nice for me, like it really is satisfying. And yes, that is my Virgo coming out, but I always kind of like resisted that, and I was always kind of like, no, it's not a big deal for me, it's not important to me. But this whole like zooming out and then like coming back down, and as I'm like moving things in my environment, getting rid of stuff, I'm like, I need organization. So that's very new to me. Like I've always thought it was cool. Like I love all the home edit stuff, I love all the Marie Kondo stuff. Like I like watching that stuff. It's satisfying like on TikTok to see organizing, but I always pushed it away, and I always was just like, it's not important. But it's fun for me now. So instead of making it like a task for me, it's just been kind of fun. I've been doing more craft stuff. I've been doing a lot of just parenting in the thick of parenting. I've noticed where I've avoided things or where I just like distracted myself. And the last couple months has been really trying intentionally not, like just sitting in it. So for example, like when you have a certain feeling about like you ever, okay, if you're a parent, you understand this. Sometimes you just want to like get up and walk away. Like, have you ever thought like, what would happen if I just sat here? And like, you're not like yelling, like, it's not like an exchange that's low vibe or anything. It's just maybe like in that moment, you're like, I don't want to be in this room with these kids or with this person. It doesn't have to be kids. It could be whatever relationship. You're like, I need to leave. Like, what would it look like to just kind of like sit in that, like, and of course, like make sure your nervous system is all good, like you're nurturing your nervous system, because that's where for me, I was like, I need to shift how I'm showing up, because there's been a few situations where I've identified, okay, in this kind of scenario, I oftentimes avoid, I walk away. And so I was really challenging some of these things. I was, doing some reparenting, inner child work, and it's ongoing, but I think it's necessary with all the other like rearranging that's going on. That's like what this kind of feeling is when you're like, okay, these things have no longer, like they don't align anymore. So I need to remove them from my life. I need to end these relationships, these commitments, get rid of this physical stuff, move, whatever, right? I need to change my thought process. I need to change this habit. Whatever it is, I always recommend, right, to start shifting something on a small scale, especially if like what you feel needs to change is kind of like out of reach. We're going to start shifting things and moving things energetically on a smaller scale. Because as you're like, okay, this isn't identifying with me anymore. What you're really doing is like reprogramming this new identity that you're claiming in your brain. And so as you're doing it on like a smaller scale, it's like connecting the dots in your brain, right? So like one day I want to wake up and decide I'm a baker, but I don't have anything to bake with. it's going to be harder for my brain to make that connection. Like if I don't have flour, like if I don't have the right stuff, right? So when I decided, okay, I want to be a baker, like I am a baker. What does that mean? What does that look like? What do I have in my house? Like setting it up and like starting on a smaller scale. And for me, that was getting some of the things because I did not want to go to like bake something and then be like, I don't even have what I need, you know? That's really conflicting for my mind. So as you're identifying these things that like no longer serve you, or you're wanting to shift your identity and like take on this new identity, it's like, what are the things that make up that? And how can you start making small changes that are going to like lead you to that stepping stone? And that's where you get to follow your intuition, because it's like, you don't have to worry about how you're getting all the way over there. I didn't have to worry about being a baker. I just had to worry, like, all I had to worry about was like, what do I need? And then I just needed to decide what I wanted to bake that first time. So having those like little breadcrumbs for yourself, and just like know that like it all happens, like even if you're like shifting things on like a smaller scale, it's actually shifting like the timelines and what's available to you on a bigger scale. So this push and pull movement has been happening for me, and I feel like that's what is really allowing me to ground into this new identity. It's not like this surface level, like this is what I'm doing right now. And what's funny is I've had that reflected to me. It's like, oh, you're still doing the baking thing. Or just kind of like, are you doing something else? Like that expectation of like, well, what else are you doing? Or, oh, like you're still doing your podcast. Like the assumptions, and just kind of like when things are wanting, okay, so like when things are wanting to shift, or when you're wanting to shift things, it's going to shift in all areas of your life. So when you start committing to something that's like brand new, there is a projection that might come to you, but know that that's also a reflection of what you might believe. So it's like, where in my life have I not committed to the things that I said I was going to? And how is that being projected back to me? And that like surprise of like, oh, you're still doing that. Yeah, I am. And there's this like, for me, okay, so I'm a manifesting generator. So like changing my mind is like, I've pretty much trained people to know that that's what I do. and that's like how I have fun. That's like how I keep things exciting. I'm like, yeah, I was doing that for a while, and I've moved on now, you know? I changed my mind. I didn't want to do that anymore. And I've gained that confidence to have that language. And so it's been fun to like feel really grounded in what I'm doing and have this like devotion to it. And there's a little bit of like this surprise in some people, and I've really been enjoying that. But I think that comes from slowing down and finding that clarity and like relentlessly just trying things on. And I will say I've tried things and I'm like, nope, that's not for me. Like, or I don't like the way that I approach that. Or, you know, there's just like, it's like trial and error, right? It's one big experiment, and just kind of seeing like, it's a lot of work with my intuition and my guides, because I'll shift things. It might be physically in my house. I've done so much cleaning and organizing upstairs. I'm ready to get downstairs too. But it's like a matter of like, okay, move this around in your life, whether it's something physical, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your career, whatever, and see what happens, see what shows up. And it's literally like playing with life. And it's just been so fun. It's been very healing, a little bit heavy. We had a lot going on with the cosmos and just like self, but it feels really good, like, to know that like this is the grounding process. And there's this moment where you're like, oh, I'm still creating, like I'm still kind of in between timelines. I still have like I have this new identity, But because I'm still committing to things that may be associated with an older identity or what might be outdated, what might be limiting, like that's what this clearing is. That's what this grounding is. But because of that, we still have this choice of like, what does this timeline look like? What are we creating? Do we want to hold on to anything? Because we might have this thought like, hey, this is a limiting belief. This is something that actually contradicts this new identity, but like you are creating this identity. So you get to decide, how does this belief contribute to this identity I'm creating? And so that's where it gets really exciting, and you feel like I'm playing, I'm trying things out. I'm putting on different identities. I'm trying different clothes. I'm trying different styles, personalities, responses, beliefs. And you do this with intention, but not with expectation of like how it's going to feel, what it's going to look like, how people are going to respond. And then you get to do the reflection. And I do this relentlessly because I won't know if it's my truth if I don't like fully try it on, right? Like if I don't fully attempt to express myself, then I'm not going to know if it's my truth. So yeah, just, I guess I can go more into that. But it just helps clear out what is outdated for you, right? So if I was like, I'm going to be a baker, but I don't get all the right ingredients, or I don't read the recipe beforehand. And if you have baked before my life, like, like you got to follow the recipe. So it's like, how are you not actually committing to this identity that you want to claim? How are you not actually committing to the frequency of what you're trying to attract? And that's what's been very clear for me, because I like things have just been manifesting for me, and it's because I like literally can't stand the frequency of what doesn't align anymore. And I resisted it for a while because it meant I had to have some like really honest conversations, one with myself, but with people I love and people I care about and have relationships with. And it, not that they were bad, but like you have to have honest conversations, and that's how that works. That's how, changing your life, and when you make changes within yourself, like it's going to be reflected outward, and the best thing you can do is like communicate. But I felt like I couldn't fully express myself. Like I said in the beginning, like it was really hard for me to express myself as I was still trying to like ground in. Like I'm trying to fully ground in. But there, it's getting easier to express myself. And what's important is to just like, as things are forming, as things are solidifying and becoming clear for you, expressing that in some way, even if you don't have people who might be affected by your decisions, expression is important, whether that's like writing, singing, dancing, whichever way, because that's how you kind of like show your body, hey, this is the new, right? Like this is me, this is us. So it's like the big question lately. It's like, what have you been up to? What will you choose? Like, what are you choosing to do with your time? Which is why all this rearranging is happening. There's a lot of like dissonance for things that might have been great the day before. And this could be temporary. So what's important is to like observe like where, when, like your environments, and just like detach, detach from any meaning of it. This came up for me, like things that I love. I was just like a hard no. Most of it was temporary. Most of it was just like almost kind of like a mood, but It was just a strong dissonance for things that normally I was like all about. And giving yourself grace. So whenever that comes up for me, I'm like, just pay attention, because that means something else is calling your energy, right? Like, so if you something you normally commit to is like all of a sudden, and especially if it's part of your routine, um, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't stand to do that. Um, just pay attention, because that means something else needs your energy at that time, or like when you're normally going to do that. And if you need help, like figuring out what it is, it's just like ask for help, like ask for a sign. Say like, okay, like just and this is where the expression is, like claiming, okay, I see that I'm not supposed to be doing this right now. I see that I don't want to do this right now. What do I want to do? What do I show me what is available for me right now? And you'll be guided to what it is, right? And this is where the habits, so this is like, even if it's something that like you want to do every day, it could be the time of day, it could be the order in which you're doing things that just needs to be rearranged. And this all plays a part into identity, right? Think about whatever identity you're stepping into. Think about that person. Like, how do they wake up? Right? So if you wake up and scroll on your phone, but like now you wake up and you're like, I have a headache and I can't even look at my phone in the morning. Well, okay. Maybe you scroll on your phone at lunchtime. Like, if that's important to you, maybe it's a sign to stop scrolling on your phone, like, especially when you first wake up. But like, could it happen at a different time of day? And what is your body trying to tell you? What is the universe trying to tell you? And this is where the rearranging and things that need to move, it's just, it could be simple, right? It could be right in front of you. Like, I keep looking at like this pile of stuff that I need to take care of right here. But the rearranging is happening and everything's being highlighted for you of what needs to be moved. And they're saying like, there's no right or wrong. What's important is start moving. Um, okay. What else? I did kind of write a list of things that I just feel like are important when you're settling in to new identities, which I think a lot of us are. And are we? Yeah, we're headed into Scorpio season. I love this. So just pay attention. There's things that are happening on a smaller scale. And like, don't discredit them. Those are important shifts too. And we want like, they're showing like everyone wants the big shifts. Everyone knows about the big shifts. And so depending on what your perspective is on the big shift, consider the smaller things, and the smaller things are like stepping stools to help you. So if you have like anxiety or fear about these big changes in your life, then scale down to the smaller things. I would suggest looking at your human design too, your variables. If you need help with that, just reach out. I'd be willing to just look at kind of what your perspective and motivation is, and we can see like where you can look at, like if you need to look at things more of the big picture or like things smaller scale. And this will help with one, just like your overall stress and like mindfulness around like what's shifting, what's changing in your life. I'm very big picture, but when I get like a little bit overwhelmed with the big picture, I notice like all the little things, and that satisfies me. Like, it kind of like there's this balance that's needed. And that's often what happens is like we have the tendency to see things one way, and oftentimes we just need somebody to come in and say like, but look at this other perspective. So I play with both, right? Big and small scale. Yeah, and have fun. That's always my advice, is like have fun. The lows have been really low, and I always joke around. I'm like, I could be real. I could just get really stuck in it if I wanted to. And like at times I feel like I am. I will be honest with that. But like I remember to have fun, and I think like how fun it is to be able to feel. And I honestly believe that. Okay. Like you can't just say that and not believe that. It won't work. I've tried that, but I've honestly learned to love all of my feelings and just like this capacity of my humanness to feel. And so I've been having lots of fun with doing different things. I'm thinking about, well, do I want to say that? I don't know if I want to talk about that yet. But Amy and I, for fun, we do some epoxy resin, and I love coasters or like paperweights. Like I just like doing those. I have this one. This one is like my OG. It says bliss out because uh, you know, manifesting generator. It's very me. The pink and yellow was my vibe a couple years ago too. But I just made this one. It's representing of, if you're on YouTube, you can see, I guess, but it's I call them manifestation squares. I don't know if that name's gonna stick, but it's like the throat center in your human design. And so I put manifest. I probably won't put manifest on all of them, but then I put the gates that I have in my throat center. I have 12 and 20. So I put them where they are. I put manifest. If you flipped over, you can see manifest too. So it's like a coaster, but you could use it as a paperweight. I have a bunch of other stuff that I can add to them, but the colors, everything, like it could be very intentional. And so this is a thing. Like everything that I've been doing, I don't always think about it. Like I'm not always like, I should do this because of this, right? But I'm always connecting the dots of like, that's why I felt called to make this, and that's why I felt called to do this then. And that's really how my intuition like connects things for me. I allow my body to guide me, and like I just trust like this is what I want to do now. And then afterwards I get the downloads, right? Like I get the knowings. I get the connections. And so with this, I don't know, I'm thinking about offering these because what you can use this for is really this source and reminder of your energy to manifest, communicate, and express yourself. And that's what this, the last couple months has been. I'm also in a personal year 3, which is about self-expression. So like this is all very fitting for me, but it's for everyone. We're all in this age where it's like we are figuring out that like, hey, we see things differently, and that is a beautiful thing, and we need to be able to express that. And I saw a quote, Chelsea Diane, it wasn't even a quote, she just said this, and so it's her quote, but it was on her stories, and it was like, being weird doesn't make you an artist. And if there's a part of you that feels misunderstood by everyone, it's because you don't understand yourself. And that is deep. Like that is deep, 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 deep truth, because like I've been there. Like a part of me is still there. Like, right? Like fully. If there's a piece of you that feels misunderstood by somebody else, then there's a piece of you that doesn't understand it. Right? And so I truly believe that. And it's like my mission to be able to understand me, like not always understand myself all the time. Like I'm a multidimensional being. So there's going to be parts of me that live in confusion. I have the gate of confusion. So like, but to have the compassion and understanding for myself, to hold that, then I won't have the reflection of people misunderstanding me. And I feel like that was so fitting for this time right now, of where we are defining who we are. We are defining how we want our families, how we want our relationships, how we want to educate, how we want to live, how we want to do our work. We are redefining work. Like, when people say I have to go to work and then they're like talking about their 9 to 5 or like a job that they hate, I don't know. Like, okay, I heard this too. There's so many things that I heard. I'm like, oh, that's good. But I really just want to redefine work, because my work, like my work, I enjoy. Like I'm not working, like my work is my mission. So like it doesn't have to be like when I sit down at a desk. It doesn't have to be when I do like my work, quote unquote, like what's on my to-do list, what my duties are, what, like if you do have a job, like, you know, what's on your, I can't even think of job description. Like I'm not, it's like it's beyond that. Your work is like your mission. And so redefining that for me has been like, this is my work, is like defining who I am. Like it does not serve me or anyone around me to not know who I am. And like don't like I don't mean I don't mean like you have to have all your stuff together, right? Like that's not what I mean at all. But just like have that confidence and that trust and understanding, like, hey, this part's cloudy in my life right now, but I have confidence in myself and full trust that it's what I need right now. It is who I am right now. And when I do ground in and land somewhere, I'm going to fully trust and know that that's me too. And that's really, really just kind of like having that confidence of being able to manifest and express yourself and create. So I made this little manifestation square to just kind of, I don't, it's okay. Maybe it's weird. I guess tell me if you guys like these or not, because it could just be a coaster. It could be a paperweight, or you could just carry it, put it in your bag. I don't know. It could go anywhere. That's fun. But yeah. But I make them so I can make them however I want. And I'm going to keep making it. I'm going to make them for like the people, like my clients and people, my friends, because I like looking at the different throat centers and their human design. So find something that really is just that reminder that you're still in creation. You are still here to express yourself and to love and to play and to manifest, create, right? So much fun. Okay. Let's see. Anything else that I want to add in? I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna wrap up here. Quick, and this is probably should have been at the beginning of the episode, but I currently have my website down. So if you want to connect for the podcast at all, or connect for any type of services, remember I have the human design readings and some one-on-one coaching offerings for transformation and human design integration. So if you're going through some changes and you want the support of just that human design awareness and understanding of your energy, then that would be a great opportunity for you. But regardless, if you are interested in any of my services or working one-on-one, you can email me or you can reach out on social media. I am on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. So yeah. But otherwise, I think we're set for the day. Okay. I was like, I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I haven't recorded an episode in a while. All right. But if you enjoyed today's episode, I would really appreciate a little shout out. You can take a screenshot and share it on social media. Don't forget to tag me at the Intuition Playground on Instagram, or you can leave a rating or review for the podcast, which is so helpful to get the podcast out there and visible to more listeners. And if you send a screenshot of your rating and review to our email info@theintuitionplayground.com, I will send you some intuition tips based off of your human design. So all the goodies there. Once again, thank you for tuning in today, and I will talk to you all next time on the Intuition Playground.